Hey, wanna know how long you're gonna live? Well, if you were born on Earth, you might live to be 80 years old. But if you were born a star, you could live for millions or even billions of years. It all depends on what kind of star you are. That's right. There are different kinds of stars, just like there are different kinds of people. All stars go through three main stages in their life: being born, living, and dying. Some stars live fast and die young. Others live slow and die old. Or maybe a black hole flies by and its gravity pulls the cloud into a spiral. Eventually, the gravity is strong enough to start nuclear fusion, which is the process that powers all stars. How long a star lives depends on its mass. The more massive a star is, the shorter its life will be. Why? Because the more massive a star is, the stronger its gravity is. And the stronger its gravity is, the faster it burns through its fuel. It's like when you have a big, heavy car. This makes the core even hotter and denser, which causes the outer layer of the star to expand even more. The way it dies depends on how massive it is. Low-mass stars like our sun will run out of fuel first. When this happens, the star will collapse and shed its outer layers, leaving behind a small, dense core called a white dwarf. They live by fusing hydrogen into helium, and they die by collapsing and shedding their outer layers, or exploding in a supernova. No, you didn't learn nothing. You learned lots of stuff about stars. Now it's time for our special fact check. Did you learn nothing? Think of a white dwarf like a 401k. White dwarfs are very hot when they're first born, but they don't shine bright because they're so small. It's small and dense and hot, but it doesn't do much else. The star becomes cooler, but it shines brighter because it's bigger. When they die, they throw off their outer layers, leaving behind a core that's even smaller and denser than a white dwarf. They explode in a supernova, throwing all of their mass out into space. The core collapses in on itself and either forms a black hole or a neutron star. That's why some stars can be so big before they explode. Their cores are filled with so much mass that gravity is literally crushing them. The explosion of a supernova can be so bright that it outshines an entire galaxy for weeks. Neutron stars are also very hot, but they're so small that they cool off quickly. And when the star explodes, all the material it threw out into space forms a beautiful cloud of gas and dust. This is where new stars are born, and the cycle of life begins again. This core is called a neutron star, and it's so dense that a teaspoon of neutron star would weigh billions of pounds. That's heavier than an elephant. In fact, some neutron stars are actually visible as pulsars, which are rapidly rotating neutron stars that emit beams of radiation. Once the core gets hot enough, it starts to fuse helium into carbon and oxygen. This releases even more energy, and the star starts to shine even brighter. But the helium doesn't last forever. Eventually, the core runs out of helium too, and the star collapses again. This time the core gets so hot and dense that it starts to fuse carbon into neon and oxygen into magnesium. This happens until the star has used up all of its fuel and collapsed completely. You're gonna burn through your gas much faster than if you had a small, lightweight car. This is where hydrogen atoms get squeezed together so tightly that they turn into helium. Medium mass stars live for millions of years, and high mass stars live for thousands of years. Some stars live fast and die young, while others live slow and die old. But no matter how you go, every star eventually runs out of fuel and goes out like a candle. This releases a tremendous amount of energy, and suddenly our young star is shining brightly in the night sky. Whatever happens, these disturbances create waves of pressure, and the particles in the clouds start to move towards each other. As they get closer together, gravity starts to take hold, and the particles begin to form clumps. These clumps keep getting bigger, and as they grow, they start spinning faster and faster. Not all stars go through this phase, but the ones that do go through some major changes. During this phase, the star's core starts to run out of hydrogen fuel, and the star starts to expand dramatically. Our sun will become a red giant in about 5 billion years. At its biggest, it will be about the size of Jupiter. Luckily, it won't swallow Earth because Earth will be long gone by then. Instead, it will engulf the inner rocky planets, Mercury, Venus, and Mars. It's like when you were a kid and you're playing with your toys and you spin them around and around until they fall over. Except this time, instead of toys, it's particles of gas and dust, and instead of falling over, they collapse into a ball. But no matter how you go, every star eventually runs out of fuel and goes out like a candle. In this video, we'll explore the life cycle of a star from beginning to end, and stick around until the end, because at the very end, we have a special fact check for you. So let's start with the beginning. How do stars get born? It all begins with a giant cloud of gas and dust floating around in space. We call these clouds nebulous, and they're made up of mostly hydrogen and helium, the same stuff that makes up the sun. Sometimes these clouds can be hundreds of light years across, which is really big. A light year is the distance that light travels in 1 year, which is almost 6 trillion miles. That's about the length of 25,000 American football fields lined up side by side. Now, these clouds of gas and dust aren't exactly alone in the universe. They usually have a bunch of planets and other space rocks floating around them. And sometimes these clouds even have baby stars forming inside of them. But most of the time, these clouds are just hanging out doing nothing, not even falling over. Why? Because even though gravity is pulling all the particles towards each other, there isn't enough mass in one place to make anything happen. It's like trying to get a group of friends to agree on what to watch on Netflix. If everyone wants something different, you'll end up just watching something boring like The Big Bang Theory. But sometimes something happens to disturb the cloud, like a nearby supernova, which is the big explosion that happens when a star dies. As the ball of gas and dust gets bigger, the gravity at its center gets stronger and stronger. Now that our star has been born, it's time for it to live its life. Low-mass stars like our sun live for billions of years, slowly fusing hydrogen into helium and making light and heat along the way. When these guys die, they go out with a bang. But wait, before we talk about how stars die, let us talk about a very important stage in the life of a star called the red giant phase. Once a star's core runs out of hydrogen, it starts to collapse. So now it's time to talk about how stars die. There are 2 ways that a star can die. Medium-mass stars will run out of fuel next. Finally, it's the high-mass star's turn. So there you have it. The life cycle of a star from beginning to end. Stars are born in clouds of gas and dust.